Good afternoon, this is Angela with Progress Permaculture. It is a beautiful sunny day here in July in Zone 8B in Portland, Oregon. Everybody's out mowing, so we're just gonna have to put up with a little bit of mowing noise in this video. So I'm here today to take a look at and prune this beautiful but overgrown plant behind me. And it's not just behind me, it's actually growing up and through the bench here. This is Wisteria, and in my climate, you typically need to summer prune your Wisteria. In fact, you often need to repeatedly summer prune your Wisteria as well as winter prune. So today I want to talk a little bit about how you summer prune Wisteria, what Wisteria needs to be successful in your garden, and some significant cautions about growing Wisteria. We are at my dad's house. I do not grow Wisteria in my own garden, but I grew up as an Air Force brat and we moved around a lot, and anywhere that we lived where you could grow Wisteria, my dad grew it because he always loved it. Wisteria grows in zones 4 through 9, by the way. If you go either end of that, you're really pushing it. Wisteria produces those really iconic, romantic spring blossoms, these beautiful drapes of pea blossoms that smell lovely, they're beautiful. Wisteria sinensis is in kind of a lavendery blue color. Wisteria floribunda can be white or pink or lavendery blue as well. Just such a beautiful plant. You know, you may have a Midwest farmhouse where you see them draped over the front of the porch with their blossoms hanging down. You may have an English country garden where they're scrambling up your brick wall. You may have a traditional cottage garden style. You may be just somebody who loves romantic flowers, and you may think like Wisteria is a good choice for me. So I just want to caution you, when you plant Wisteria, you really need to know what you are setting yourselves up for. This is a plant that will easily live 50 years. So think about not only what you are putting in for yourself, but what you are gifting future owners of your house when you plant a Wisteria. I know our next door neighbor has said, like, I have this vine coming up in my yard and I keep mowing it. It's up by the street. And what is this thing? And, you know, we'd been neighbors for more than a decade, and I came over and looked and I was like, oh, that's a Wisteria. Like, clearly there was maybe like a lamp post or a fence post and someone had planted it. And it didn't matter that Ben mowed it every single week for 10 years. That puppy was still alive. Wisteria are extremely hardy, extremely vigorous and resilient plants. Wisteria are nitrogen fixers. So they're in the pea family. And because of that, they actually do very well in soils that are very poor in nitrogen. If you have too much nitrogen in your soil, you can actually have your Wisteria suffer a little bit. They fix their own nitrogen because they have those nodules on their roots with nitrogen fixing bacteria. That means they do need magnesium and phosphorus added to the soil. Those are two nutrients that your Wisteria can benefit from, making sure you have ample quantities in your soil, but don't add extra nitrogen. Because it fixes its own nitrogen, because it is a sun-loving plant, Wisteria, like so many of the leguminous species, are an opportunistic pioneer species. That means they are aggressive, very, very aggressive. They want to come in, they want to colonize an area that is depleted, help fix nitrogen in the soil, soak up all of that sunshine, and prepare the landscape for when there is a succession of species that can handle the conditions the Wisteria has established. But when you have areas that are depleted, where the natural overstory has been removed, if you release Wisteria into that landscape, it can become very invasive and take over. That means for many places in the southern United States, Wisteria is on the invasives list. You really want to be careful when you're growing it. Now, Wisteria itself, the one individual plant, we're not talking about its babies and its potential to escape into the environment. The one plant you put in your yard, again, can live 50 years. It can grow, one tendril can grow up to 70 feet long. That means if you train it up in 1 liter this way and 1 liter this way, you could have a 140-foot long plant easily. That means it will very quickly get over the top of your house, and not only will it go up to the top of your house, it will get up under the eaves. When we lived in Ohio when I was in high school, our Wisteria got into our attic. It literally went in, popped up over the edge of the roof and got into the attic. It's a very aggressive plant. I've seen folks who had basically the front porch of their house pulled off by the Wisteria. I did a video about growing hardy kiwis. I talked about the same thing. These kinds of vines are very strong, robust, heavy heavy plants when they are mature. So when you put in a wisteria, you want to make sure that you have an adequate support. I would encourage you not to put it near the foundation of your house. I say that as my dad put it right here. I would encourage you not to grow it on your house itself. Wisteria is best grown on an arbor out in the middle of your yard, away from other plants, so that it can't reach out those 140 feet and use your other plants as a trellis and then smother them. Wisteria likes that sunshine. It likes a structure out in the middle of nowhere where it is able to be fully enjoyed by you, the gardener. Perhaps you want to have like an arch and put a bench under it so you can sit and enjoy the fragrance and the beauty of the blossoms. I would discourage you from growing it on your house. As much as that kind of romantic image is very, very popular, it can pull the front of your porch off. It's something that you need to know what you're getting into if you decide you want to grow it on your house. So my dad grew this one on a T-post, and we're having a problem here. Let me reach over here. So my dad put this on a T-post, and it requires pruning in the winter quite heavily, and then pruning in the summer, one big prune and several little prunes. So it can grow more than a foot a day in sunny weather in my climate. And you can see here, it's not sticky like ivy, but it has these winding tendrils that can just grab onto everything. And it grabs onto the siding of the house and gets up underneath, and that's enough of a lip that it'll just climb up your walls, as you can see back here. You can see here, it's wrapped through, kind of like hops does. It's not sticky. It doesn't put out little suckers that hold onto the wall. It's just that curving tendril action that helps it hold on. Because it can grow more than a foot a day, it doesn't take very long before it has gotten ahead of you, and you need to think about what your pruning regimen is going to be in order to keep it controlled. You can come back into a plant that's been a little neglected like this one, because I've been busy in my own garden and taking care of real life stuff, and you can prune it quite heavily and you won't hurt it. Like I said, my neighbor mowed it every week for 10 years and it still came back. One thing to be aware of is that wisteria grows on new wood. And that means, much like pruning grapes, kind of, you start with a scaffold of the basic structure that you want. And in the winter, you head all of the leaders back to a little bit of growth off of spurs. And that makes it very, very easy to prune it and keep it contained. In the winter, you should remove at least half of the plant, and you should take it way, way back. But in the summer, we're really thinking, much like my hardy kiwis, about controlling these vigorous tendrils. It's done blooming for the year. Sometimes in weird years, we get a second bloom off of our wisteria in the autumn, but usually it's just a spring bloomer. We're looking at controlling the vegetative growth in the summer. And that means you might come by every few days with your clippers and just like clip it back toward the basic structure. Or you might let it get a little bit away from you like I have here, and then you'll do a big pruning. So let's go look at the wisteria from the other side. So here's the wisteria. I'll flip the camera around in a second to give you a little bit better view. You can see these long tendrils that come out. Any other structure that's here, they will grab onto and take over. There is a T support in here, and I'm going to be reducing all of this excess vegetative growth. Now keep in mind, the wisteria and all parts of it are toxic. The seeds, the blossoms, all of the vegetative matter, all of the roots. So you don't want to eat it. Definitely not. Even though it's in the pea family, there are lots of legumes that have very toxic seeds. So that does not mean that it is edible. It is very, very much not edible. Just an ornamental plant in our garden. Okay, so you can see what problem we're working with here. Here's the T-post, and there's supports in here like this. The last time I pruned this was in, I think, April. Right after it finished blooming, and you can see it is attempting to climb the house already. It has successfully gone all the way up over here into the wind chime, all through down here, and through the railing around the bench that's behind it where I was sitting at the beginning of this video. All of this stuff needs to come off. This is where you get into trouble. It can pull things off the side of your house, not only by the sheer weight of the vine as it matures, but also just because it's so strong in its upward movement here. When pruning at the base, you can see this is about a 10-year-old wisteria, and the base of it is wider than my whole hand here, but it's repeatedly cut back. so that we're keeping a small structure with a very large base, and then we're training a structure much like training grapes, right? Up where we want them. Now down at the bottom here, there's all these little volunteers. I need to take those out immediately. I want to maintain my base structure and my leaders off of it. So I'm going to prune for a minute, and then maybe you can see more of the scaffold structure. So quickly you can see here, here's the wisteria that I'm going to be pruning in a second. Underneath it, it is planted with lady's mantle that I'm about to deadhead. I think that makes a wonderful ground cover that has a really nice contrast in leaf shape and blossom color to the wisteria. So if you're thinking about like, what do I plant around the base of my wisteria? I really like lady's mantle. Now, if you live in a colder climate, you want your wisteria on a south-facing wall in order to get it to bloom and to bloom early. In 8B, where I am, it's pretty mild in general. This is an east-facing wall. Somewhere where your winters are harsher and it's colder, you do want to put it on a south-facing wall. So I'm going to get pruning here. Okay, so I'm mostly done. Ruth is helping untangle the clipped vines from the wind chime, as you can hear. So a couple of quick things about your wisteria in the summer prune. We are not pruning it all the way back to the scaffolding. That is what we do in our winter prune. This is going to continue to grow vigorously all summer, and it's best if you come by every few days and just head back that long growth. You can see it's much more compact now. It is much tighter and neater and contained and is no longer rambling all over the side of the house. Be aware that wisteria is very, very easy to propagate from cuttings, hardwood cuttings, softwood cuttings. Also, you can germinate it from seed. Now, if you germinate it from seed, it can take up to a decade to bloom. So most of the time when you're buying a wisteria, you are buying a grafted plant, or you're buying one that is grown from a cutting. You're buying a clone because it takes so long for them to mature from seed. But when you're pruning it, those cuttings can sometimes root quite easily. So be aware that you want to clear all your cuttings off so you don't end up with rooted volunteers around your garden. So Ruth, do you want to come tell us about your experience selling wisteria at the plant nursery and any tips for folks who want to buy them?
Yeah, so when I worked at Portland Nursery, I worked in the vine section a lot, and there usually was two sizes of wisteria. There was the 1 gallon pots, and then the big like 5 or 10 gallon pots. And there was a huge price difference. The 1 gallon pots were only about $20, and the big wisteria could be upwards of $100. So I would always tell people it is not really worth your money to buy the bigger ones because they grow so quickly.
Right, so with wisteria being such a vigorous and quick grower, you're looking at a plant that can easily grow 10 or 20 feet in a year. It doesn't take that much patience to get your plant to a really large size. So think about buying the smallest plant you can, and actually maybe think about not buying one at all. You could ask on Craigslist, you could ask in your local free cycle group, your local buy nothing group, do you grow wisteria? I know if you do, you have to prune it frequently. Can I come take some cuttings from you and try and root them myself? Because this, as plants go, the wisteria is a pretty easy and successful plant for folks who are new to plant propagation. It roots quite easily. So maybe you can find some cuttings for free from someone in your neighborhood and give it a go that way. Okay, so here we go. You can see that I have cleared off all of the sprouts coming up from the bottom. Some of them were going under the porch about 12 feet. They were way up under there. So keep that in mind as a cautionary tale. You need to take all of the sprouts off from the base. Now you can more easily see the structure of the plant. You can see in here the scaffold structure with my permanent pieces in here. And then these are the younger pieces that I want to keep that will then flower next year. All of these are going to keep sending off shoots. I'm going to have to keep coming back and keep taking them off over and over and over. But now there's no longer any up over the house, no longer any here, no longer any on the wind chime. Regular maintenance. When you commit to a wisteria, you are committing to regular maintenance in exchange for nitrogen fixation and a beautiful display in the spring. So thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope if you are considering growing wisteria that you will think really hard about whether you are prepared to give it the care it needs. Maybe like if you're gonna adopt a parrot as a pet, like, hey, I'm taking on this pet that I'm gonna have for the next 50 years. It's kind of the same commitment with wisteria. I'm gonna have a bit of an active toddler of a plant for the next 50 years. Is that something that I want in my garden? Knowing that I can't neglect it, I can't abandon it, or it will take over. So think about that when you're thinking of adding wisteria. I hope this pruning video was helpful. If it was, please share with your friends and check out my Patreon below. I'll be back from my own garden next time.